say love conquers all, that affection is pure, selfless, and rooted in honesty. But if that were true, why do we so often fall for those who hold back, manipulate, or control? Why does distance excite us more than closeness? And why is it that those who understand the game of power seem to have more success in love than those who merely offer their hearts? Welcome to a world where desire isn't driven by sincerity, but by strategy, where attraction is less about emotion and more about perception, control, value, and leverage. In this video, we're diving deep into the Machiavellian laws of attraction, not to teach you how to manipulate, but to reveal the hidden dynamics beneath your most intimate relationships. Brace yourself. This isn't about fairy tales. It's about what really makes people chase and what really keeps them hooked. Niccolò Machiavelli never wrote a guide on love, but his philosophy, born in the ruthless courts of Renaissance Italy, can be chillingly applied to modern romance. For Machiavelli, power was the essence of all human interaction, and where there is power, there is influence, and where there is influence, there is attraction. Law-1. Value is an illusion. Control it. We often think attraction is about who we are, our looks, our personality, our kindness, but Machiavellian thinking flips this on its head. It's not about what you are. It's about what people perceive you to be. Perception is everything. Appear valuable, and you will be treated as valuable, regardless of your inner worth. This is why mystery is so seductive, why emotional distance is magnetic. Because when someone holds back, we assign them a higher value. We chase what seems scarce, not what is abundant. In attraction, silence often speaks louder than compliments. Withdrawal can say more than affection. This isn't coldness, it's perceived power. The less available you seem, the more others project onto you. They fill the gap with fantasy. Law-2. Never make them feel safe. Make them feel curious. In love, we're taught to offer security, to promise we'll never leave. But the darker truth is security often kills desire. Passion doesn't thrive in safety. It thrives in uncertainty. That's why unpredictable people tend to spark more obsession. Their emotional inconsistency becomes a riddle the other person desperately wants to solve. It's not healthy, but it's addictive. Machiavellian lovers don't give themselves away. They're measured, ambiguous, not because they're afraid, but because they know tension creates interest. The moment the mystery dies, so does the chase. Law-3. If you want power, be willing to walk away. Desperation is repulsive, but detachment, that's intoxicating. The person who needs less always holds more power. Machiavelli understood that control comes not from aggression, but from indifference. The person who can walk away at any time becomes the prize, because their value isn't tied to the relationship. It's tied to their autonomy. In modern dating, we're told to be open, expressive, vulnerable. But the harsh truth, vulnerability without boundaries gets exploited. Respect doesn't come from how much you feel, it comes from how much you can feel, without losing your edge. Law-4. Give a taste, then pull back. Machiavellian attraction isn't about constant giving, it's about calculated scarcity. Offer moments of emotional intensity, followed by space. Give just enough to awaken longing, then disappear. This creates what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. It's the same principle used in slot machines. Unpredictable rewards are the most addictive. This tactic isn't just manipulation, it mirrors the human condition. We don't desire what's given. We desire what's earned, or what we think we've earned. We're more attached to people who make us work for their attention, even if it hurts us. Law-5. Emotional dominance is the real game. Here's the final brutal truth. Attraction isn't fair. It rarely rewards sincerity. It rewards psychological dominance. That doesn't mean cruelty. It means control over yourself, and by extension over how others respond to you. Machiavellian lovers know their emotions, but don't broadcast them. They observe before they engage. They respond with precision. They control the frame. And because they don't chase, they're chased. And when you control the emotional temperature of the interaction, you hold the leash. Not because you're heartless, but because you're intentional. Now pause. Reflect. This isn't an invitation to become cold or manipulative. It's a wake-up call. Love, real love, can't thrive without truth. But attraction plays by different rules, and unless you understand those rules, you may forever mistake sincerity for strength and get punished for it. It's not about deceiving others, it's about not deceiving yourself. About recognizing the subtle power dynamics that shape your connections and learning to navigate them without losing who you are. Machiavelli taught us that human nature is not always noble, that power, not morality, often rules the day. And in love, just like in politics, the one who understands human weakness often wins. But here's the choice: will you use this knowledge to play games, or to rise above them? In a world driven by illusions, the rarest kind of power is authenticity, wrapped in discipline. Let's dig even deeper. Because beneath the surface of Machiavellian attraction lies something far more complex and far more unsettling. Leithia Berlin 6. Attention is a form of currency. Never give it freely. Attention is energy, it's validation. And in today's hyper-connected world, flooded with likes, texts, swipes, and emojis, attention has become cheap, but its effects are still powerful. Machiavellian minds understand this. The person who controls where attention flows controls how others feel. When you lavish someone with attention, especially early on, you send a signal: I am emotionally invested, before you've earned it. But when you're selective, when you observe first, engage later, and offer attention like a precious resource, you flip the power dynamic. It's not about playing games. It's about resisting the urge to overgive, especially when you're unsure of the other person's intentions. Because attention, when given too soon, becomes the leash around your own neck. Leithia Berlin 7. The person who feels less wins more. This one hurts. Because deep down, we want the fairy tale: mutual love, equal effort, emotional reciprocity. But the emotional economy of attraction doesn't operate on fairness. It operates on imbalance. The one who can remain detached, who doesn't spiral when they're ignored, who doesn't emotionally collapse when things get cold, that's the person who silently holds the reins, and that's what keeps the other chasing. Machiavelli would call it strategic emotional control. In our language, it means composure, not apathy, not indifference, but a clear boundary between what you feel and what you act on. The less you react, the more others will begin to question their hold on you. And the more they question, the more they fall under your influence. Leithia Berlin 7. Never be the first to need clarity. We all crave certainty. We want to know where we stand, what the other person feels, what they intend. But in the early stages of attraction, the person who asks for clarity first is often the one who loses influence. Why? Because the moment you seek clarity, you position the other as the one holding the answers, and yourself as the one in need. Machiavellian philosophy sees this as a moment of leverage, not vulnerability. The person who waits, who lets the other come forward first, maintains the upper hand. They become the mirror in which the other person searches for their reflection. Of course, this doesn't mean avoiding honest conversations, but it means having them from a place of strength, not fear. Leithia Berlin seduction isn't about lust, it's about controlled reveal. Seduction isn't just physical, it's psychological, and at its core it's about timing. Reveal too much, too soon, and the mystery evaporates. Hold back completely, and no connection forms. The Machiavellian lover walks the razor's edge, offering glimpses, not confessions, suggestion, not disclosure. This creates anticipation, and anticipation, as every great philosopher of desire knew, is far more powerful than gratification. Plato once said that desire is born from what we cannot touch, what we cannot fully know, becomes sacred, and in this sacred gap between what we show and what we hide, seduction lives. Leithia Berlin 10. Control the environment, control the outcome. The battlefield of attraction isn't just emotional, it's environmental. Machiavellian minds understand this. They shape the context, they choose the settings, they control the narrative. Because if you can control the where and when, you influence the how someone feels. Think of it: dim lighting, slow music, mystery in your word, or sudden silence in a digital conversation. These aren't accidents, they're frames. And the frame shapes the perception. Create the right frame, and people become more open, more suggestible. They feel you, even when you say little. That's not magic, that's environmental control. Let's pause once more and bring in a wider lens. Because this isn't just about strategy. This is about the nature of human longing itself. Montaigne once observed that we are never at home in our own company. Simone de Beauvoir warned of the tendency to merge with the other, to become consumed by love. And Nietzsche, ever the destroyer of illusions, claimed that love is rarely about the other person, but about how they make us feel about ourselves. When you understand this deeply, you see why power plays such a crucial role in attraction. Because people aren't always seeking love, they're seeking identity. And the person who controls their emotional mirror controls how they see themselves. This is why detachment is powerful. Why emotional self-sufficiency isn't just attractive, it's magnetic. Because the person who doesn't need validation becomes the one who offers it, and that is irresistible. 11. Don't react, reflect. Machiavellian attraction isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about delaying expression. Reactivity is a gift, one you give to those who don't deserve it. Every time you respond impulsively, you surrender control. Reflection, by contrast, gives you options. It turns conflict into opportunity. It turns awkward silences into pregnant pauses, and it allows you to lead, not follow. In relationships, the one who reflects before reacting always has the last word, even when they say nothing. 12. Don't just attract influence. Attraction is the spark, but influence is the fire that keeps it burning. The Machiavellian doesn't just want to be wanted, they want to shape how they are remembered. They implant ideas, they linger in minds. Not because they beg for attention, but because they frame it. This is why people become obsessed not with what happened, but with what might have happened, with what you almost said, with the way you almost looked at them. Influence doesn't require grand gestures, it requires emotional subtlety, and that's where true power lies. So what does this all mean? That love is a battlefield, that power is the only real currency in attraction. Not necessarily, but it means this: if you walk into relationships believing that sincerity alone will protect you, you may be broken by those who understand the game better than you do. This isn't about manipulation, it's about awareness. It's about learning the rules, so you can choose how and whether to play. Because in the end, the most attractive force in the world isn't beauty, or charm, or money. It's self-possession. When you no longer chase, you become the part. When you no longer beg to be seen, you become unforgettable. Master yourself, and you master the game. Let's go deeper still. Because power, once acquired, must be maintained, and maintaining attraction through control is not without its cost. 13. Power attracts, but peace sustains. Here's the contradiction. The same tactics that ignite attraction, detachment, mystery, silence, can eventually create emotional starvation. And while people chase what they cannot fully have, they also grow weary of what never fully arrives. The Machiavellian seducer knows how to spark desire, but often struggles to hold intimacy. Because true intimacy demands risk, vulnerability, surrender, all things the strategic mind was taught to fear. There's a silent tragedy here. The strategist becomes so good at winning hearts, they forget how to open their own, and in time, the throne they sit on becomes a cage, built from the very power they used to rise. 14. Emotional independence is the highest form of attraction. It's one thing to appear detached, it's another to be whole. Emotional independence isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about being so anchored in your own value that no reaction, no rejection, no silence can make you question it. This kind of presence, calm, clear, centered, is magnetic. Because most people live in emotional chaos, they crave a lighthouse. You don't need to manipulate when you've mastered yourself. The real game isn't about others. It's about your own emotional sovereignty. Who you choose is the strategy. Most people obsess over how to attract someone. The Machiavellian mind asks a better question. Should this person be attracted to me at all? Because who you choose to desire is itself a form of strategy. If you choose those addicted to validation, to drama, to power games, then even if you win, you lose. The wisest power move isn't seduction, it's discernment. Not how can I get them, but do I even want them? Once I truly see them. Recognize when the game is over. There comes a moment, in every dynamic, where the power games no longer matter. When you no longer need to delay the text, or shape the silence, or calculate every glance. This moment is rare. It happens when both people no longer fear being fully seen, when the mask drops, when you trade the illusion of control for the risk of authenticity. Machiavelli teaches you how to win, but he doesn't teach you what to do after victory. That part is yours to write. And if you're not careful, you may end up clinging to power because you've forgotten how to connect. Kierkegaard wrote that love is a risk, not a transaction, not a tact, but a leap made without certainty, and often without reward. Bell Hooks reminded us that love cannot exist where domination thrives, that real love begins only when the need to control dissolves, and Jung he warned of the shadow, that part of us that seeks to control what it fears, and in doing so becomes the very thing it despises. So perhaps the greatest Machiavellian victory is not control but transformation, to go from one who manipulates emotion to one who feels fully, to go from architect of the game to one who no longer needs it. This is the paradox of mastery, that those who learn to influence others must eventually learn to surrender control, not to lose power, but to enter into something higher than power, something real. You've now seen the architecture of Machiavellian attraction, the subtle moves, the psychological leverage, the art of seduction through power, distance, and control. And maybe you've seen parts of yourself in it. The silent calculations, the long waits, the chase for validation masked as strategy. But remember this, strategy without soul is emptiness. Power without purpose is corrosion. Influence without connection is just another form of loneliness. The real journey isn't to dominate others. It's to master the inner game, the fear of being known, the fear of losing love, the fear of not being enough. And once you master that, you become untouchable, not because you never feel, but because you feel deeply, and choose to love without becoming lost. Win the inner game, and the outer world follows. Let's step beyond the battlefield. Let's leave behind the ghost of Machiavelli, and ask a question that haunts even the most powerful. What happens when the game no longer works? When all the tactics have been played? When the silence no longer intrigues? When the detachment no longer creates desire, but distance, emptiness? Horizon 17. The greatest strategy is to transcend strategy. At some point, even the most calculated person stares into the mirror and sees the cost, not in lost opportunities, not in failed conquests, but in the disconnection with themselves. They've become so good at crafting an image, they no longer know who they are without it. They've hidden so long in mystery, they've forgotten how to be understood. And so a new challenge begins. Not how to win another person's mind, but how to recover your own heart. Horizon 17. Every strategy contains the seed of its opposite. The silent ones, they crave to be heard. The detached, they hunger for closeness. The manipulator, they long for someone they can be honest with, without fear of losing their grip. This is the paradox, that the more we chase control, the more we lose connection. The more we fear vulnerability, the more we long for it. And no strategy can outrun the ache of not being known. And what of love? Not the performative kind, not the kind that needs an audience, but the rare kind, the difficult kind, the kind that survives after all the games have ended, Philosophers rarely define it because it can't be controlled, measured, or reduced to a rule. Love is not a strategy. It is a surrender, a conscious decision to be seen, flaws, fears, and all, and still remain. Liaison 19. Love cannot be taken, only given. Machiavellian desire feeds on conquest, on winning, but love resists conquest. You cannot seduce someone into staying. You cannot strategize someone into seeing your soul. You can only offer it, and whether they accept it is never within your power. This is where philosophy parts ways with manipulation, because the philosopher seeks truth, not victory, clarity, not illusion. Elis entente. If you lose yourself to win someone else, you've lost twice. So many enter the game with one goal: make them want me. But they never ask, which version of me do they want? The performance, the mask, the silence, and in the chase, they chip away at their own essence, until one day, they win. But it doesn't feel like winning, because the person they got doesn't actually see them, just the character they played. Here, we reach the final law, the one not found in any playbook.